Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Church Ops 500. We're going to continue our interview with Pastor Chris Kelly at Mid-Cities Church. We were able in our first episode to go through the first 2 points that he had for us, how to stay in ministry for the long haul. So this episode is going to focus on the next 3 steps, so 3, 4, and 5. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch last month's podcast, I invite you to go back and watch there first so that you can get the full context of what Pastor Chris is sharing with us. If for some reason you only are able to watch this one, I'll give you a quick synopsis of kind of where we are. Pastor Chris from Mid-Cities, he's been in ministry well over 20 years. He's currently the executive pastor, and functionally he oversees all of the staff campuses. They have 4 campuses, 2 English-speaking, 2 Spanish-speaking. Just an amazing church in Texas area as a part of our Every Nation family. So excited to have Pastor Chris continue with us on how to stay in ministry for the long haul. As always, please, wherever you consume this content, I ask you to like it, rate it, share it with friends who you think might be able to gain help, insight from our podcast. The goal is always to reach these churches, these operational directors, these administrative folks that are out on a ledge working solo, to give resources to help you continue to build and grow in your ability to do ministry well.
Well, the third tip is following God's vision for your role. It's following God's vision. So obviously we talked about this church ops role. It's all day firefighting. It's the whack-a-mole. There's so many times I'll leave and I'll look back on my day and be like, what did I accomplish from 8:30 to 5? And I think about it and it's like, I really didn't accomplish anything that was on my list. I had people lined up out my door all day trying to get 5 minutes. And 5 minutes is never 5 minutes, by the way. 5 minutes is 30 minutes. And if they need 30 minutes, it's an hour and a half. Like, and you can have that all day. And sometimes, like you said, the day rules your schedule. But even if it doesn't, there's a list of duties and responsibilities that are on your job description that you were hired for. Your senior leader had these things in mind when they wanted to bring you in, and you've gotta fulfill those things. And I always joke with my team when we look at those duties and responsibilities, and I sit down and say, hey, you need to understand that some of these duties, they're going to bring you life. You're going to love doing it. And then there's going to be other duties that they're just have-tos. And you got to do it with the same level of passion on the things that you love, because we need it done excellently. And that's just the reality of it. There's a list of things that we need to accomplish. But what I'm talking about, I believe that God has placed you in the role that you're in, to accomplish something very specific that only you can accomplish. And I think it's our job to be able to find out what that is, because it's that thing that's going to bring you life. It's the ability where you can put the fingerprint that God has placed on your life on that house and on that church. And so kind of just some tips on that. You've got to seek the Lord on that. Obviously, this is something that is not going to bring division in the vision that's already being played out in the church. It's nothing that's going to do that. You've got to involve your senior leader in this. Once you get a feeling of, man, I have this new initiative or this new ministry or this new way of doing it. It's something different than we've ever done. It's something that God has dropped into your heart to be able to bring about within the church. Obviously, sit down with your senior leader on it. Like I said, it's not going to bring division to what's already going on. But I think the other key thing is all of the other responsibilities and roles that you have, job duties, all those things got to keep going on. I've seen it before where someone will come on staff and, oh, God's given me a vision and we love it. We're like, yeah, run with it. And then we look down, we're like, wait, all the other stuff that you needed to get done, that's not getting done. So we got to get those things done. But yeah, finding out the why has God placed me here? And it's more than likely tied to some of those duties and responsibilities you have, but there's a fingerprint of what God has done in your life that he wants to do at that job, at that role that you have. And we got to be committed and intentional of finding out what that is, because there's fulfillment in that.
Love it. Yeah, man, let's keep digging. This is Great content. I just challenge everybody, if you're not taking notes, if you don't have a pad out, something, and be writing this down so that you can come back and review it and look to make change in how you're leading for the sustainability.
That's good. The fourth one is getting your house in order. So obviously burnout, foul out, but then there's this whole financial piece. I don't know about where you're from, but we don't usually have people wanting to come on staff because of how well they're going to get paid. Does that make sense? Usually there's somewhere else within our market that's going to pay them more than what we can. And there's something else that's driving them here. Hopefully it's the call of God, because that's what's going to keep you there too. But you've got to have your financial house in order. I've seen so many guys and girls, they're talented. They have giftings and they have a call on their life for ministry. And they either, one, can't step into it because their standard of living is so high that they don't want to drop it down. Or they get into it and then they can't sustain it because of poor money management. And so, First Timothy 3:5 is talking about how can we manage God's house if ours is a mess. And the context of that is, I think it includes financial. It's obviously a lot broader than that, but how are we going to manage the finances in God's house if ours is a mess?
Yeah.
So we've got to be able to have that in a place where it's in a good place for us. Just some tips on that. Living on a zero-based budget, living below your means, having your emergency fund in place. And I think what is also key is don't be tempted by others, because if you've been in this a while, your peers are typically going to be taking different vacations than you are. They're going to have different homes than you. And you can look at that, especially in those times where you're having one of those times of, God, did I really hear you? Is this really what's going on? And then you go over to Facebook and you're like, man, so-and-so's got this nice little vacation going on. You could be tempted to buy that, but you've got to know those things are coming. You got to know the why and what you said. Yes, I'm here. I'm following God in this. And you got to understand that you're building something that's going to last. What we build here, what we do is eternal. Man, it is going to survive the flames, and man, there's going to be a reward at the end of it. So don't be tempted by that. But if you're in a place where man, financially my house is a mess, get help. There's so many good resources out there. Go to your senior leader, bring people in on the situation to help you out with that. And yeah, don't leave the ministry because of money, for sure. Because there's, like I said, there's a blessing in what God has.
Yeah, definitely. The world's the same on this end. It's like our team often, you're not here for the paycheck. There's something deeper, something that means more. And I think even as we think about that then can be a great positive, but can also bring its own negatives, because then it is harder to take the breaks. It is harder to take the vacations, because you're not doing just simply a job. You're doing something that means so much to you. So truthfully, I tell our team, that's why it's even more important for you to get that clean break, that clean detachment, because it means so much to you, because it's more than just a job. If you aren't taking those rhythms of rest, if you aren't taking those moments with God, you will unintentionally empty yourself in the pursuit of something that means a lot to you. So sometimes we have to be those boundary setters for our own teams. And if, to your point, if we aren't good at it, if we don't have our house in order, how are we going to help our teams and our directors and those folks in key positions to model that well? So we really do have that trickle down effect. And it's so important for us in our roles to model that well. And I love the places where you all are intentionally enforcing it. Like, nope, you don't get an option about taking a day with the Lord or not. The option is when you're taking it, not if you're taking it. I want to see your vacation time on paper when we start the year. Like, really challenging our folks to take on good behaviors when it comes to that and cultivating that culture.
For sure. And that's something that you brought up too, that makes all of what we're talking about today so important, is because there's no other profession out there um, that is so integrated in someone's life. I mean, we
Mhm.
work where we worship and where our spiritual family is, sometimes our biological family.
Come on.
And if they're not there, a lot of times spiritual family is closer than biological family.
Yeah.
And so you have all of these things. A lot of times you can just doing what you're called to do can feel like you never can get away with or get away from it.
Yeah.
And so scheduling that time to be able to get away um, is so key. I remember it was years ago. Love my wife, and we have one of those relationships where we can be around each other for a very extended amount of times without just hating each other at the end of it. But I remember I went on a mission trip, and then I went over to the Philippines. We had a conference there, and so I was gone like 2.5 weeks. Never had been gone 2.5 weeks from my wife, and so it wasn't one of those things that I was looking forward to. But I get home and it was just like everything was new. It was kind of like a fast. You after that fast, you taste that one thing and it's like, oh, it's so much better. And I remember. And so that absence is what I'm trying to say. It makes it so much sweeter. And the same is true when you rest or you set the boundaries or you unplug, detach. You get back and you remember why you're doing what you're doing. And when you come back, it's all the sweeter. You're that much more thankful for what you have and where God has placed you and what you're doing. And so it's a really good point
Yeah.
there.
And I think that's a great indicator as we talk about kind of that evaluative piece. I challenge everyone, if that's not how you feel when you return, you either didn't rest well or there's a much bigger problem at stake, and it's a deeper conversation. But having those things where you can go, hey, this is what it should feel like. This is what it should, how you should view it, and what that engagement looks like after the rest. That's how. Is it working? Man, it is actually accomplishing the goal that's met. And I definitely agree with the complexity of it. My wife is actually our church administrator, so we spend a lot of time together here in the office, and then time at home, and then vacation. So working really hard not to talk about church stuff at home. Man, oh, you sent me this email earlier today and I didn't get a chance to respond. And then all of a sudden, now dinner conversation becomes what dinner didn't get done in the office. So being disciplined in those boundaries is huge, huge.
Man, you brought up a whole other level that I didn't even bring up, and that's the nepotism. Churches are great
Oh,
at nepotism. And
yeah,
so, yeah, you
yeah,
add that in the mix, you really can't get away from it. And so being intentional about stepping away is good. It's
yeah.
good. Well, the last tip I had, and I wanted to put it last, it's really first. This is the first tip, but I wanted it to be last so that we can remember that. And that's, John 15, just staying connected to the vine.
Come on.
Um, when you're in this role, you're in constant need of strength. You're in constant need of creativity. You're in constant need of wisdom, of problem solving ability, and so much more. Advice if you're counseling, a word when you've got to deliver it to somebody. That we have to remember that God is the source of all of that. When we don't do that, we can get in this place where we feel like it all depends on me. All
Yeah.
of this is on my shoulders. The staff's on my shoulders. The church is on my shoulders. The building that's falling down around me, it's on my shoulders. I gotta make all this happen. And man, that's a dangerous place. It's such a dangerous place to be in because it's really not. Because God actually loves that church more than you do,
Come on.
and He loves you as much. And we're not designed to carry that weight. And so we've gotta resist that temptation to operate within our own strength. And I think again, tie in everything we just talked about it, how personal it is with us. Because other jobs, you can go to work and you're like, man, I don't like this company. I'm thankful for my job, but I don't like this company and they're
Mhm.
doing crazy stuff. Like if it goes down, it goes down. You can go home and you can leave it. but you're not going to do that where you're at. You're passionate about where you work and what you do and the house of worship that it is, and you can easily grab that and say it's all on me and I got to run with this. But we've got to we got to resist that temptation to operate in our own strength, because one, like I said, we're not designed to do that. You won't succeed. But even if you were to succeed in what you think you need to do in your own strength, success disconnected from Jesus is no success at all.
Come
It's
on.
just not.
Come on.
If you succeed in something, there's gonna be a day where we give an account for what we did. And if it was in our own strength, and we missed it, we missed the mark on that. And so resist that temptation, stay connected to the vine, stay connected to community. And man, that's a big help in staying in this for the long haul.
Yeah, come on. So good all the way around. And I agree, Pastor Chris. It's like that challenge of wanting to do it ourselves and recognizing at the end of the race, if that's what we've done, it really won't matter to Jesus. And keeping our eyes on that prize. That's man, are we doing the things that matter to him? And I think it brings that clarity of vision and being able to know what to set down and what to hold on to and what to fight for and what to let go, being able to come back to that place. So I think it's just a wonderful time in being able to touch these things. A few more questions for you. And I think it can be very enlightening for folks. I think one of the things that our team, or at least there are people who are watching this, often wonder, and I get this question often as I'm talking, is, man, where are those places of investment? If you're talking to Pastor Chris 10, 15 years ago, hey, here's where you need to spend your time, and here's where you need to invest your energy to be ready for what's coming.
So, and just in the area of rest, are we talking rest and longevity?
Man, yeah, sure, but across the board, if something sparks and you go, hey, even outside of the rest and the longevity.
Yeah, eh, making connections with people at other churches is huge. People that are doing the same role that you're doing, someone that you can call and just ask a quick question to. I think that's huge. Those relationships, that advice has been key over the years. And it's not just relationships with people at other churches, but it's people that are working with churches. So, I mean, our accountants, the lawyers that we have that we deal with, those have always been great phone calls, conversations that I've been able to have to help steer whatever decisions or whatever things that we're looking at the time. And so that's been a key one. I think with rest, there's definitely some great books out there on rest. I know that there's The Rest of God, Sacred Rest. Rest of God's by Mark Buchanan. Sacred Rest is Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. Those were just life-changing for me because there's a time where you collect cerebral knowledge, and then there's a time where it's experiential.
Yeah.
And I hate even admitting this because I would really love to say that cerebral knowledge does like a lasting change in me, but it just doesn't all the time. And so, I know even recently that there's just things that I've gone through in the area of rest where all the stuff, I mean, I could have talked about all these things years ago, but it wasn't until I actually had to experience some things where the Lord was like, no, you are going to rest. And when the Lord makes you rest, it like we read Psalm 23 and it sounds, oh, it's nice pastures, so great. Sometimes he kind of like takes that rod after you though and says, you're going to rest right now. And it's you learn a lot in those moments. And I think there's a lot we could learn from suffering. And I think we're called to it. Jesus calls us to suffering. But the thing is, when he does that, he's never going to waste that. And you're going to learn things through that. And so for me, that's been the biggest teacher over the last several years, even more so than resources and podcasts and different things like that, because we're so inundated with information all the time. It's when the Lord actually stops and says, no, the things you were learning about, well, I'm going to really have you learn about them now. And so it's been a good little season.
Yeah, definitely feel that Psalms 23. One of the things that I definitely take from it is the commanding language. Man, he leads me. He makes me lie down in green pastures. And like people, to your point, they hear that and it's so loving and kind. And it's like, you actually watch the birds interact with their sheep. And there's a whole lot of you will do this. Not would you like to? I'm inviting you. No, this is what you're going to do. And I think definitely being in a place where we can even see those things, those places where we've had to walk through hard things, continually ask that question: what is God trying to teach us in this? What is it meant? What are we meant to learn from it? Because I'm with you. I would love to claim that that cerebral learning, man, that's the place where I'm obedient in. But man, it's the school of hard knocks. It's him going, okay, if you're not gonna listen, I'm going to make you listen. I'm going to grab hold of your face and we're going to have this conversation right now. So I just invite anyone who's in that space just to trust that what God is doing in your life, that it will and can cultivate just a strength in you to be able to trust him in it. And I cannot echo the heart behind making sure that you are building relationships. I think in this role, relationships are so important, so vital. And those relationships will not be built by waiting on someone to call you. Because if you look at the platform of most of the operational directors, I can guarantee you they can fill up their day without going, oh, I should call this person. Right. So we have to be the ones that are proactive and going, hey, I want those relationships. I want to build those resources. I want to cultivate those opportunities to be able to get that experiential knowledge. Part of the whole reason we do this podcast is to create a space where you can build that platform. So, Pastor Chris, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for being willing to invest in this space. And the heart behind it for us is really that it will improve, it will increase knowledge. But more than anything, it'll help confirm in your heart that you are called to do this, that God has a grace over your life to do this. And it's simply getting the knowledge, getting the understanding, being able to step back and have a wide view of what he's calling you to keep your hand on the plow, to keep doing the work. We know that the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And while we may not be frontline ministry in the things that we do in this sense, the role that we play is vital to the leaders that are grown and to the ministry that is done. So if you're viewing this content, again, as I always ask, make sure that you like it. So make sure that you share, because we want to get the word out to folks. Also know that any of the resources that are mentioned in here, I'll have them tagged in both the YouTube and our podcast location so that you can find the books that were mentioned. And as always, if you have questions, please reach out to us on Facebook. If you have a question specifically for Pastor Chris, definitely we'll work to get that to him, see if we can't get an answer for you, and be able to get information back to you in a timely manner. So always remember, your amount of resources don't speak for you. How you use them says everything. So every day with the right tools, it is possible for you to do the impossible with less. So remember, share this content. We look forward to next week. Everyone, we hope you have a blessed day.